Hello and welcome along as the Cross Series League Racing Championship returns this week. It's round 6. Oh, hello, that's our leader. That's Peterson. And Ross is just headed past him. We've just seen him flash through there. And Turn 1 claims yet another victim. Round 10 of the championship. And everything to play for a few of our drivers. As
there it goes.
There we go. I think there's just all of a sudden the daylight has fallen off a cliff and there's people absolutely everywhere trying to find their way round, off track, left, right and centre. Ghastly. I'm hoping for certainly not a ghastly race as he's, tell you what, he's really foisting coats up onto that high line. Cower opting for a much lower one as we go green here for the final time at Lima Land. I mean, when you saw those two coming together in your mirrors, surely it must have been a big weight gone from your shoulders.
I just kept my foot in it and I just kept going.
Spoken like a true pro. A bit of a question. Obviously, are you going to remain? You're going to come out in a week's time. We're going to see you out on track as we head to Alicia.
Yeah, I plan to be there unless we get another last-minute decision to go racing here in real life. That was why I wasn't here last week. We decided to make a last-minute decision to go do some racing, and yeah.
And how did you get on?
What's that?
How did you get on? Obviously, when you went, well, I say real life racing a couple of weeks ago.
Trey, let me put this to you in American terms. How well did you do last weekend?
Oh, pretty good, I think.
Here come the lights. Let's get ready to go racing in Germany for the first time. And Clog, he's jumped the start there. He's going to incur a penalty. Bouncing across the curves, the pair of them. And Thompson's finally going to let the run on him. He's going to be up the inside of the run down to Kike turn. And surely this is going to be from the lead. He backs out of him. Schenkler runs wide. And Thompson's finally got it. But here comes Ham. He's right into it and he wants to plate off Schenkler. He wants to rob Salt in his route right in these last stages. Now let's get ready to go racing from Bristol in the grand final of round 5 of the XSLR Championship. And there's bang and Stein into the wall early.
Daytona International Speedway, one of America's racing capitals of the nation. And we're here at the virtual Daytona International Speedway tonight for the first race of Season 5 of the Cross Series League Racing Championship. My name is Alex Andersen. I've been joined in the commentary booth by Randall McGrew with Jonathan Grabowski in our virtual production truck. And we're here at the virtual Daytona International Speedway with, surprisingly, Radical SR8s. And funnier thing, it's on the Daytona Oval. And I know when you think of the Daytona Oval, it probably NASCAR comes to mind. The Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series. We're here in Radicals. These are high-performance cars that were meant for road courses, but the owner of this league decided it was a good idea to bring them to ovals for our oval portion of this championship. So here we are, and Randall, with these cars at this track, trust me, this is going to be a show.
Yeah, this is going to be really exciting. I like the changes they've made for the schedule this season, mixing up the oval and the road. They're going to run an oval, and then they'll run the road version of that track on the following week. So next week, we'll see them on the Daytona road course. Never seen the Radicals myself on an oval, so I suspect it's going to be a lot like an IndyCar race. The draft is going to be absolutely massive here.
Well, I can vouch for you on that part. I have actually raced these cars on our sticker plate track. We brought some of my friends and I brought these cars to Talladega and we raced them at night there. And yeah, it's pretty much that. It's basically an IndyCar race, but think of Indy cars compared to these. Think of radicals as Indy cars compared to radicals. Basically, Indy cars are on steroids. These cars are just normal athletes. That's basically what it's going to be. Like you mentioned, the massive draft runs are going to be a main fixture of this. Like you saw, that it looked like 308 car just got one to get, or the car behind, Jeremy Barber, just got one to try and make a move to the front around this orange car on the bottom here. So 15 seconds left in practice, heading into quality. It's going to be some pretty long laps. We have 32 laps here tonight, so it's going to be a pretty long race.
Yeah, qualifying, not exactly the most important part of this session. You would like to get a good track position, but honestly, with the big draft and the small field, it's not really going to make a huge difference where you start. So it's going to be all about race management and when you take your pit stop, making sure that you don't come in by yourself. You need to have a dance partner whenever you pit, just like we see in NASCAR when they run the restrictor plate races.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it's going to mostly be. Is it's going to seem like a restrictor plate race, just maybe about 50 miles an hour slower for these cars. But heading into qualifying, I mean, it, like you mentioned, Randall, it really doesn't matter where you qualify. Obviously, you want to get the best starting spot possible. But, I mean, really, if you're skilled enough at these types of tracks, you can just get any sort of run and just make your way to the front slowly but surely. But these drivers are going to have to be careful because there is a term associated with stock car racing at tracks like this, and that is the big one. And judging off of how small these cars at a track like this, I reckon we're going to see it a couple of times.
We'll definitely see at least one big one, I suspect. They do have the damage turned off for this race, given the nature of the car. They want to be able to push each other, but these cars are extremely fragile, so they have disabled damage. So while your car will take damage initially, it will heal itself, and then you can continue driving. As long as it doesn't bring out a yellow flag, that could separate the field quite a bit, and we can see some people running on their own. If you're by yourself, you're in no man's land, and you're just waiting to be lapped by the leaders.
Yeah, but so far, everybody looking to try and get good qualifying runs. You see a lot. So it looks like, from what I'm viewing, from what some of these drivers are doing, I think, Randall, you might have the answer to this. Are they allowed to use the pit, or are they allowed to use the pit access roads on their laps, the apron of the trial? Are they allowed to use it? I don't think it would be much faster, even in cars like these, but are they allowed to use it? Because I saw Bobby Ross going down there. I don't think he might have just been exiting the pit lane, but I mean, it could be a valid strategy for some drivers to try. However, I just think driving on the bank would just be a little bit faster.
Boy, you bringing up an old chestnut when it comes to iRacing rules about when you can and cannot go below the yellow line. Typically, in the oval style racing, you're not allowed to go below the yellow line at all to gain position. So I believe they will be staying away from doing that. Now, when they come to the road course, the rules are a little bit different. But for oval, it's pretty strictly got to stay above that double yellow line.
Yeah, so it looks like, judging off of the drivers running their laps, it looks like that is the deal. Everybody's trying to keep the car pinned on that bottom line, try and get the biggest runs they can down these straights here. It looks like Shank, currently the 950 car, has the fastest lap there with a 54.901. He's a little bit faster than Chet Turanek, who we're looking at right now. Adam Thompson is there in third. Currently, yep, there he is across the line, heading into turn one, I believe, to start his second lap. Barber is there in fourth, Ashley Lyle in fifth, and then Jake Ham in sixth so far out of the drivers who have set lap times. And a strategy we will see from some of the drivers. If you don't see a driver that you like making times out on the board, that's because a valid strategy for some restrictor plate tracks, pretty much all restrictor plate tracks, is just making, or not even qualifying, just purposely starting in the back of the field to avoid these wrecks. I've done that before. I reckon a lot of sim races have done that before. It is a very decent strategy.
It is a good strategy. It's much better in a larger field. So a small field like this, it may not really prevent you from getting into one of those big incidents, but it'll definitely give you time to react. When it comes to the big one, the best way to avoid it, though, is to be ahead of it. So it's really a coin flip where you want to be, at the front or the back. One thing you don't want to be doing, though, is making your move when the big one happens, because you will surely be caught up in it.
Oh yeah, most certainly, and that's just one of the dangerous things about plate racing, is just you have to make your moves at the perfect moment, and oftentimes you can never really judge when that perfect moment is. Because yes, you can get a nice timed run and have support behind you, but say somebody in front of your wrecks as soon as you pull out a line, well, now you're just going to plow straight into it. You got nowhere to go. So as we're watching Jimmy Howard head through turn 4, I believe he'll set his second lap here. He's already set one. It put him on pole to 54.90. So across the line, almost maxed out on revs in 6th gear, gets it a little bit on the apron. It looks like he won't improve. He'll stay on pole, though, provisionally. And is everybody else probably just going to finish their lap times? Randall, what are your predictions for this race? Because it could go to anybody.
With a field this size on a track like this, it's going to look like one of those IROC races of yesteryear where the cars are all in a spec and you got drivers out there that are extremely experienced in drafts and drivers that are not. So I believe you'll see some people trying to make moves early to figure out how to make those moves work in the draft, see how long it takes them to work their way up and start planning that move for the end of the race. It's going to be a game of high-speed chess, and with this small of a field, you'll probably see a lot more elbows out.
That is a very good way to describe restrictor plate racing, high speed chess. And that's basically what we are going to be seeing tonight, is just a 32 lap long game of high speed chess. And Randall, why don't you take us through our starting grid?
With the 54.909, Jimmy Howard takes the pole in that number 37 entry with Roger Shank alongside of him with the Mad Sim Racing entry. P3, Chet Duranick. P4, Jake Ham. Tim Cox in P5. Adam Thompson in P6. Ashley Lyle starting in P7. Jeremy Barber starting in P8. Bobby Ross starting in P9. Kevin Irwin with the number 7 entry from Bayview Shade and Blind starting in 10th. Charles Michelle in P11. Josh Clogg starting last on the field, did not set a time in qualifying. We'll see if he's on the grid in 12th.
I think he should be on the grid. I think he might just be pulling one of the strategies of not qualifying just to start in the back of the field. And, I mean, like we mentioned earlier, or like you mentioned earlier, Randall, I mean, the best way to avoid a wreck is being in front of it. But being behind a wreck is going to certainly give you a decent amount of reaction time. But the thing is, with this size of a field, I just don't know if that strategy is going to work out for him. Here's Chet Duranick, Roger Shank now in the 950 car, outside pole for him. So, I mean, really, it's just a long game of chess. It's just everybody's just going to be scrambling around trying to dodge whatever wrecks they can, and be mindful that they will have to make one pit stop. They're limited to about 30% on fuel, so I do believe they're going to have to make at least 1 or 2 pit stops here tonight in order to make it to the end of the race, and that's going to be very interesting.
You could see some fuel saving going on, especially before the pit stop, to try to limit the amount of fuel that they'll need to take to finish the race, to try to win the race off pit lane. If a couple drivers can break away and use that draft, it may be more difficult for the rest of the pack to catch up. But as long as the rest of the pack stays together and works together, they should be able to close down any gaps. It's going to be very interesting, though. I think the driver that wins this race is going to be the one that adapts to the situation best, to read what's going on, what strategies other drivers are using, because it could be a tame race up until the pit stop, or it could be a wild one where everybody's gunning for the top spot.
Yeah, and the last time we went to a restrictor plate race in this series, which was last season with the 2013 NASCAR Chevrolet Silverado trucks, we were at Talladega, and my, that was not a tame race. That was not a race for the faint of heart. That finish was absolutely wild, and even with slower cars here, it's going to give us longer laps, more time for drivers to make moves, and it's going to be a show tonight here at Daytona.
The draft is going to have a bigger effect on these cars as well, and given the nature of these cars, they're very, very nimble, so drivers are going to feel a lot more confident to make moves, and that could lead to disaster for some people.
Yeah, and I want to take a quick moment. Just look at how wide these cars are. Just judging off and just using my best guess, you probably fit 6 or 7 in a single row if everybody was just really holding their lines. So very wide track, very small cars, and that's going to leave room for a lot of people to make moves, and it's going to give us a very interesting race.
And if the pack's together at the end of the race, it would not be a surprise to see them coming through ovals 3 and 4. 3 wide, possibly even 4 wide, run into the tri-oval for that checkered flag.
Yeah, everybody would just be trying to get every move they can and getting every spot they can just to try and get a better finishing position. But the iRacing pace car is going to dive into the safety of the pit lane, and as the field approaches the Geico restart zone, the green flag is out, and we are racing at Daytona. Great start there, and they're already wrecking. Around Chet Duranic and Robert Shank. Wow! Chet Duranic got clocked 2 cars into the pit lane, a 5-car wreck, and we didn't even make it to turn 1.
It looks like Roger Shank there had a little bit of issues with the start, probably in too low of a gear, spun up the rear end a little bit, and around it went, and it collected a few other people. Then while others were reacting, this caused a bigger incident. We're going to have the replay pulled up now. We see Roger just gets actually, sorry, my mistake. He got a little bump from behind by the Superman car and sending him around, and a couple other people just got collected with nowhere to go. But damage is off, so they will have fully repaired cars. Caution is out, so the field will be bunched back up, and all this is really going to do is send a few drivers to the back.
I actually do think that what happened to the other 2 cars, it looked like they were in front of the wreck. After it had already happened, it looked like one drove into the back of the other, and they both spun into the pit lane, so they're going to need a black flag clear for that. But like you mentioned, I mean, they do have complete damage repair on, so they are not out of the race at all. In fact, even if you're right, nobody's out of the race. You just got to keep pushing, try and get back up towards the front. But that's very unfortunate for Roger Shank and Chet Duranic. Started 2nd and 3rd, and now they're going to be starting 12th and 11th on this restart. And even though it's a small field, it's pretty difficult, especially in these cars, to make moves at plate tracks. Yeah, you gotta have help, you gotta have room to make the move, and you gotta have people that aren't willing to step out of line and block you for it. So, I mean, it's really gonna be quite difficult for them to make moves.
It's a long race. I think some of these drivers need to maybe give a little bit of extra space on these starts, let everything get up to speed. Nobody's going to lose the draft by having a poor start unless they get involved in an incident. So just give a little bit of extra space here at the beginning. Let the race get going. Let the pack form up, and then you can start making your moves. You're not really going to gain a whole lot here at the start.
Yeah, definitely. There's one car already into the pit lane. Ashley Lyle was in the pit lane just then, so I'm not sure what she's doing. There she is in the pit lane, so looks like maybe just trying to fill up on fuel. I know that these cars will have to take one pit stop, or at least one pit stop. I'm not sure exactly how many, but they are going to have to fill up on fuel at least once. So looks like Ashley already getting that out of the way, but she will have to pit again. So I'm not sure what the strategy call is there. Maybe just trying to get out of the thick of it there up front, but I don't know.
It's a very, very cagey call by Ashley Lyle there. A very, very subtle strategy she's pulling here. She's going to go ahead and top off the tank and get that lap or so of fuel back into it. In the event that this race stays green and they have to make a green flag stop, her stop is going to be that many laps shorter.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, they were only going for about, I don't know, not even half a straightaway, so can't imagine that they burned that much fuel to the point where you can make it to the end from this time out. And I mean, even when they all do pit under green, if they get that far, I mean, she still have to pit with everybody else if she doesn't want to just be abandoned out on track, because that's another thing about plate racing. You cannot pit by yourself. You have to pit with other drivers. You pit by yourself, you're just going to end up driving out there with no draft, and you're just going to fall away from the pack. So you have to pit with other drivers, even if it's only with one other person. You have to pit with them. You just can't go into the pits by yourself. So I just can't imagine that staying out for a couple of laps because you have more fuel. I just can't imagine that would work.
It's not so much about staying out and running by yourself or getting a breakaway after the pit stop. It's more giving her options for when she pits. If she finds herself further back in the pack when the pit stop occurs, she can gain positions just from that. Or if they have a later caution, she can find herself in a better position to stay out and retain track position. And right now, pulling into the pits and going to the back of the pack isn't really going to damage her race at all. So it just really just gives her options for later in the race.
Good point there. I mean, it definitely, I mean, yeah, that does make sense, honestly. If two groups of drivers pit separately, you could kind of just pick when you want to pit instead of being limited by fuel. So that is a very good point. But the lights are off on the pace car. The field is 2x2, so we will go back racing this time by. Hopefully we can get a little bit more than about a third of a straightaway in.
We should see these cars bunch back up. Again, they really just need to take care and give each other a little bit of space, let this start happen, and then they can start making their moves. But it's going to be very difficult to figure out how this race is going to play out if they can't get up to green flag speeds.
And I feel like another thing that should be mentioned is that because it's damage off, and when damage is off on iRacing cars, the physics get a little wacky. So you might see cars wreck, then repair themselves mid-wreck, and then somebody ends up going flying because of that. I wouldn't be shocked if that happens maybe once this race, but you never know. We could go green from here on out. You just can't tell with these types of races. But to get it started one more time, the iRacing pace car going to dive once again into the safety of the pit lane. Now it's all up to the drivers as they approach the restart zone. It's an early start again for Jimmy Howard, but he will easily clear himself into the lead. And it looks like a clean start for everybody else. Adam Thompson already up into second. Jay Camp falls in line in third. Bobby Ross is there in fourth with Tim Cox in fifth. Side by side behind him, I do believe, as it looks like Chet Duranek and Jeremy Barber are going for it a little bit back here. It looks like now Jeremy's going to start to fall back a little bit as Ashley Lyle going to hopefully push Chet Duranek back up to the rear bumper of Tim Cox.
See, Charles Michel took the high line there through 1 and 2 and fell his way to the back of the pack. Going to let things develop in front of him and sit back there and observe for now, and maybe start practicing his runs and timing it and see how long it takes him to work his way to the front.
Like Adam Thompson not trying to go to the lead for now, just hanging out back here in second. I mean, it's a pretty smart move to hang back here on plate tracks, especially because you can just save a lot of fuel. Just trying to keep that car clean, not try and get involved in any wrecks. But as the rest of the field starts to catch back up just a little bit, single file throughout the field, it looks like Adam Thompson trying to tandem with Jimmy Howard to try and pull away. It's not working. Jake Ham is still right there, but everybody just minding their P's and Q's, just not worrying about anything right now, just single file.
Right now, you can see these cars are very nervous in the dirty air. Definitely don't seem to be set up to optimize oval grip, so they're going to be dancing around through the corners a lot. I suspect some of these cars back here in fourth and fifth might get a little bit nervous just sitting here waiting, and somebody is going to make a move just to see what a move looks like, to at least feel things out. But right now, looking pretty tame in single file.
Yes, it looks like Jeremy Barber trying to make a move around Josh Clogg, and I can't imagine that's helping either of them, because, I mean, the main goal of these two is probably just got to catch back up to the field, but it looks like they are going to try and race each other now, as Kevin Irwin trying to make a move around Roger Shank there. That's for, I believe, that battle is 4-8, but I mean, it's just not going to help them. They've already lost well over a second to the leaders, and I mean, if they don't work together, they're just going to continue to lose time. So they have to, at one point, they just have to come together and say, all right, we got to catch back up to the leaders because they are falling behind quickly.
This is definitely a situation where maybe lack of experience is coming into play. The drivers just don't understand that fighting this much is really costing them a lot of time. But once they sort it out, it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can close that gap back up to the lead pack.
Yeah, the only thing is, I think the only way they'll catch back up to the lead pack is if the lead drivers start racing each other. There's a move. Ashley Lyle trying to get around Chet Duranek now through the tri-oval. And it looks like they'll remain side by side in the 1 and 2. No matter what, Chet is going to maintain that spot. Oh, almost gets spun. Ashley Lyle got very close to turning him as they went into turn number 1. A little bit of damage on the back bumper of Chet Duranek. That'll fix itself in just a moment. They're 3 wide back there. 4-8, and I mean, this just not helping them at all. They got to sit there and mind their own business and try and catch back up to the field. They're already 3 seconds back the leader, and they're 3 wide of 4-8 right now. I mean, it looks like Jeremy Barber is trying to follow anybody. He'll now pull behind Roger Shank, who is leading the inside line, but it looks like these guys might just be having a little bit of fun at this point.
It could be just having some fun and trying to feel out what it looks like to make a pass on somebody. And from what I'm observing now, once you pull out of that draft train, it's like hitting a wall. You don't have a car ahead of you punching that air. These cars have quite a bit of downforce for their weight. So we're going to be hitting that terminal velocity pretty early. We've seen this move here with Ashley Lyle and Chet Duranek be able to develop a couple times already. So if you're not paying attention to what's going on here, what you really need to do if you're going to make a move on somebody is back up just a little bit off their bumper get that momentum build up, and then hop out at the absolute last second. Let that extra momentum help you get around. If you just try to come out right off somebody's bumper, you're just going to hit the wall of air and stop.
Yes, it looks like Ashley Lyle is the only car in that lead pack that is actively trying to advance the field forward, and it looks like she still is yet to get a single move completed. Still stuck back there in 7th because Chet Duranek is just not pulling out in line, and nobody in front of her is for that matter. She's just kind of stuck back here in 7th place, and that's another thing about plate tracks. If everybody just gets too scared to pull out a line, I mean, it might just look like this till the end of the race.
That's absolutely right. The benefit you have with cars like the NASCAR Cup Series and the Truck Series is they're really big, heavy cars, so they can punch their own way through the air pretty easily. Light cars like this, they hit their terminal velocity very early where they're limited by drag and all the air resistance that they're hitting. So making those moves is going to be a lot trickier here.
Well, another thing that comes into play then, I feel like a lot of people would say, well, yeah, that'd be normal for a bunch of stock cars, but I feel like almost nobody in this field has probably ever taken these cars to an oval, so I don't reckon they know exactly how it works, so everybody's probably trying to ride single file for now. It's just wait for the pit stops now and just experiment with the draft physics later. They did have a bit of practice time to work with, so I think maybe just lack of experience, not knowing what the car can do when it gets into a separate line is just coming into play here. So everybody's just trying to play it safe and just maintain this lead pack. It looked like almost a look outside from Bobby Ross there as we're on board of the Tim Cox car. It looked like Bobby considered it there, but just nobody went with him. Cam nor Cox went with him up top. So I mean, everybody just trying to just ride in line here. Ashley Lyle going for another move.
And we were riding on board with Tim Cox there. You saw on his dashboard, he's pretty much on the limiter already. So these cars, even in the draft, are already hitting the limiter. So when they try to make a move, they're going nowhere. So the gearing in these cars also kind of holding them back from keeping them to make moves. So we could just be seeing a race to the pit lane. And Ashley Lyle's little pit stop there after that opening caution might be the way to win this race.
Well, several cars making moves now as it looks like Jake Ham just pulled up top there. I mean, not really making a move. He was the leader. He might have gotten hit by Adam and got unsettled.
So we see the leader got maybe bumped a little bit there and pushed outside and now is falling his way to the back. Ashley Lyle behind, gonna maybe try to bump. We'll see if the two can work together in tandem and push their way up. You see that green car putting a nose out there and maybe thinking about a move, but now that they're hooked up on the bumpers, here comes the outside line starting to develop a little bit. So we could see some old school tandem racing.
Yeah, Ashley doing a really nice job pushing Jake Ham through these corners. It looked like another car pulled up there. So now it's a 3 compared to, I believe, 4 on the bottom now. That's going to push Jake Ham into the lead, and Jimmy Howard's still going to maintain the outside line there. So Jake Ham takes the lead for the first time tonight. Ashley Lyle still right on the back bumper of Jimmy Howard through 3 and 4. Jake Ham, it looks like, will lead this lap as Adam Thompson just refusing to move to the top, just staying loyal to the car in front of him at this current point in time. So looks like the outside line's starting to develop, but still nobody making any serious moves to get to the front besides Jake Ham.
So Chet Duranek, I think, is probably in the best position right now to just save fuel and try to make that pit stop as short as possible, especially if it's under green, so that he can inherit the lead. P2 might be the way to go too, because you can always do the old chrome horn to the driver in front of you, get them just a little bit unsettled, push them out of your way, and take the run to the victory there at the very last moment.
The only issue with that I can think of is, I mean, these cars, for as light as they are, they do have quite a lot of downforce with the diffuser, the massive spoilers, and of course the front splitters. So the only thing is, I mean, unless you just turn the car in front of you, I'm not sure how that could work. I mean, you might just have to just turn the car in front of you to win the race in that position.
If you give just a little bump and send them sliding, they'll have to make corrective actions either with the throttle and or with the steering wheel. That'll be enough to slow them down to give you the run. And then hopefully you don't have the same favor bestowed upon you by the driver behind you. So it's certainly a tactic. Probably one we won't see done on purpose. I think the one we saw earlier may have been just a little bit too aggressive pushing to the corner that caused Jimmy Howard to get a little bit loose and slide up. Now that outside line has kind of stalled. Jake Ham was definitely able to take the best opportunity, jump in front of them to get that little bit of bump of momentum and pull around Adam Thompson.
Yeah, and it looks like now Jimmy Howard and Ashley Lyle clear to the bottom, but it looks like they're still trying to make that move. Now they're going to pull inside behind Tim Cox as Chet Duranic lost quite a bit of time there while we were on board with Tim Cox down the back straightaway and through 3 and 4. Now they're going to try it once more into turns 1 and 2, trying to get the side draft of Tim Cox. It looks like just barely not there. So just this isn't working right now. They need to get a bigger run than try and side draft Tim Cox back and then start to make their way forward. So now they're going to go to the outside. It looks like they'll be able to get a side draft now. Tim tried to block a little bit, but they'll still be side by side down the back straightaways, trying to make a move to get themselves closer to the front. It looks like into 3 and 4, it's still just not going to work. They need more cars to come in and help us. Chet Duranic, I would assume, unless he steps on the gas, he's probably going to fall out of the draft here.
Chet is definitely a danger.
no.
We see big contact. Tim Cox and Jimmy Howard into the wall, and the yellow flag is back out once again on the track. We saw Tim's car moving around a lot, and I don't know if he was trying to spoil the side draft or if the effect of the side draft was pulling his car up from the yellow line. His cars, like we've said a couple times, are very, very light. So maybe the effect of Jimmy Howard taking the air off of that right rear could be pulling the car out just a little bit and making it much more nervous. And we saw there, it led to a little bit of disaster as there was contact between Jimmy Howard, Tim Cox, and Ashley Lyle was able to drive away from it and now secures 4th position.
Yeah, so very lucky break for Ashley Lyle to get herself into the top 5, but unfortunate for Tim Cox and Jimmy Howard. Both of those drivers have been pretty strong up in the race, just kind of minding their own business, and just unfortunate timing for both of them. But it looks like about halfway through the race, I'm not sure if they'll be able to make it to the end here. I can probably make a quick check. So
if they're able to get a couple more yellow flag laps in, which we know they'll get now, they should be good to go. The fuel window is laps 18 to 22. They're very close to that. They've already had some caution flag laps, and they're going to have a couple more here. We see the entire field coming in. They should be good to make it from here. Now we'll see who's saved the most fuel and who can get out in front of everybody else.
yeah, so it looks like this will be the only pit stop for the majority of the field for this race. Is everybody going to come down pit road, take some fuel, or probably just fill up the fuel tank to be safe and then get back out there? Jimmy out very far to the left in his pit stall there. Very aggressive entry, almost tapped the wall. So we'll see who gets out of the pit lane first. It looks like some drivers, I could have sworn I saw Chet Duranic electing to take tires. Ashley Lyle out of the pits first. It'll be Jake Hammond second, Bobby Ross in third, Adam Thompson in fourth, Tim Cox in fifth, Jimmy Howard in sixth, and I think Josh Clogg in seventh, Chet Duranic in eighth, Roger Shank in ninth, Jeremy Barber in 10th, I believe. Yep, there he is. Then Kevin Irwin in 11th, and Boschel is there in 12th as well in the 021 car. So everybody made a pit stop just then. Now they'll be exiting the pit lane to catch back up to the pace car. And I do think we will go back racing, not this time by, but next time by. So, I mean, just 15 laps to go, or it looks like we might restart with 13 laps to go here. So this is where I think the intensity is going to really start to pick up.
Absolutely, and we see that Ashley Lyle has inherited the lead in that pit stop after that first incident with just a lap and a half of fuel burned off. Probably paid off here. We did see Chuck Duranic taking tires. I did not notice anybody else's car going up on the jack stands. It'll be interesting to see if tires make a difference here. I wouldn't think that there's much wear on those tires, but when it comes to oval racing, a little bit of wear is a huge difference. So keep your eye on Chet Duranic and see if he's able to make his way up through the field with those freshies. But Ashley Lyle, the big winner out of this so far.
Well, one thing I do honestly kind of think about now for Chet Duranek is I know they aren't big, heavy stock cars, but most of the time in plate racing, in real life and on the sim, you'll see drivers take tires in a green flag and caution flag pit stops, and because restrictor plate tracks are full throttle, you wouldn't normally think that's necessary, but I do think that it does make a difference because, I mean, it doesn't really gain you any speed necessarily. It just helps the car handle better. It gives you more control so you can feel more of what the car is doing and how to drive it better. And I think that might have been Chet Duranek's thought process there as he was like, hey, I just spun out a little bit, so I might as well take some tires, get the car to just handle a bit better. That way I can just predict where it's going to go and just try and hopefully just get some better handling in it.
Another thing you can do with those fresh tires is bait somebody into trying to block you and then take their position on the inside. With that fresher rubber, you'll have a little bit more nimble of a car, and that driver in front may not be able to react nearly as quickly. So you're right, tires are not the absolute end-all be-all like they are on shorter ovals, but they do make a difference when it comes to how the car handles.
Yeah, and that might have been the play for the number 42 car. We'll see how it works out for him in the final 13 laps of this race. Out of turn 4, the field bunched back up for our third restart of the day as they head out of turn 4. The iRacing pace car is going to once again dive into the safety of the pit lane, and as the drivers approach the Geico restart zone, let's see what Ashley Lyle can do up front. It looks like the green flag is out. We're back racing at Daytona. Ashley got a good start, but not as good as Jake Ham, who has a run off the top side. He has Thompson pushing him now as they head into turn number 1. Everybody quickly starting to defect back into the inside line. Tim Cox pulls out a line. That'll make it a 3-car outside line. Now as they head through turns 1 and 2, Jake Ham has his nose just barely out front with a nice push from Adam Thompson. Bobby Ross needs to get more on the back bumper of Ashley Lyle to help themselves out. Tim Cox is going to give that outside lane a little bit more assistance as it looks like it's just those 3 up top now as they head into turns 3 and 4. Jake Ham just barely not clear there as Ashley Lyle going to fight back on the bottom. She has a good push from Bobby Ross right now, and it looks like she might lead this lap on the restart.
A little bit of a hesitant start out of Ashley Lyle. She almost gave up that spot for the lead. Jake Ham was so close to clearing her front bumper and being able to drop down, but now I think we're going to see that bottom line is really going to come to life. That outside line might be hung out to dry. They're hanging so far though. We'll see how long they can keep it up.
Yeah, it looks like a 2-car tandem did pretty well in that single car, in that single file 7-car run we had for a while there. So it looks like Tim Cox going to pull back to the inside line. Adam Thompson will follow suit. So now Jake Ham stuck by himself. I think Adam Thompson might let him in here. No, he won't. Jake Ham going to be sent to the shadow realm now as he's going to start to fall back on the outside line.
We see it. The moves are here are really hard to make, so the time is now. You have to start making your moves now. It's going to take you every bit of these remaining 11 laps to get your way to the front, if it's even possible. So I suspect we're going to start seeing a lot more 2-wide racing, possibly even 3-wide racing over the next 2 or 3 laps.
It's going to really start to pick up now as everybody's just going to try and scramble their way to the front. Bobby Ross actually might be in the best position. If he can do what he did on that restart and just keep Ashley Lyle and himself clear of any drivers on the top side, he might be able to make that last lap push to get back up to the front using Josh Klong behind him as help. And that could put the 33 car into the lead if Ashley isn't careful, but another thing comes into play then. The leader decides to block. That could mean trouble for the whole field.
Absolutely. You have to be very, very deliberate in your move. And if you're going to block a line, you need to be very decisive and do it as early as possible so that there's not an inadvertent contact that causes the entire field to be taken out. Right now, keeping it really tame, we're very much nose to tail. It's going to be very, very hard to develop a pass without giving up a little bit of a gap ahead of you, but it's hard to give up a little bit of a gap with so many cars breathing right down your neck.
Ashley Lyle still leads. It looks like Jake Ham is still stuck on the top side there, maybe trying to get something going. But it looks like now he's just going to pull back in line, not able to get something done, as the field now made up of more cars than it ever has. It's made up of about 10 now, as Chip Duranic and Bottrell are still falling out of the draft. Now they're about 3.5 seconds back of the leaders. So now, I mean, Jake Ham is really the only one that's been willing to poke out of line and try and make a move. Everybody else is who are on board of Adam Thompson. Everybody's just chilling in line, just trying to log some laps and just trying to get this race closer to the end before they start trying to make moves. 9 to go.
Adam Thompson's been a pusher all race, so if you're going to pull out ahead of him, you might expect him to follow you and push you to victory. So it'll be interesting to see if someone goes out in front of him. Otherwise, it's going to be up to him to make the call. So far, he's been pretty happy to stay in line or to push other people, so I don't suspect he'll be the first to make a move. I'm really surprised that they're staying this tame. We need to start making moves, try to develop a second line. If we get two packs that are about even size, contact and see two cars go skating up the track, they're going to be fine. They're going to maintain the draft here. They're just going to leave a spot to Jake Ham. Actually, it looks like that car of Jeremy Barber is going to maybe lose the draft here. He's right there at the edge. He needs to keep in it and stay right in the wheel tracks of the cars ahead. But it looks like he's falling off just slightly. It's 8/10 now. He may be in no man's land. It's now up to 9/10. He's probably lost the draft. He's going to need an incident or a yellow flag to have any hope to catch up.
He's continuing to lose time. Now he's over 1.1 seconds back now, 1.2 seconds back of Kevin Irwin in front of him. So I think that Jeremy Barber is officially out of this main pack, as it looks like there's a gap starting to form between 6th and 7th there, as Roger Shank has started to fall back now. He'll need a good push from Jake Ham to push him, to push all three of those cars back there, back up into this main pack. I think with 5/10 and with help, they should be able to do it here, but with the single file energy of this main pack in front of them, I don't know if they'll be able to close this gap, so we'll have to keep an eye on what they're doing. We're on 7 laps to go now, so I think what they need is just they need these cars in front of them to start racing, as it looks like it's a stalemate at the moment for them. They're not really losing any time, but they're not gaining any either. They're just kind of hanging out back there. Now they're starting to close the gap ever so slightly, so I think in a couple of laps they'll get back up there, but it's going to take a lot of pushing from Jake Ham.
You see Jake Ham really leaning on Roger now, and if they can start to close that gap, once it closes it a little, it'll close a lot more quickly, and they may be in a good position here to strike at just the right time. If they can get that good run going and pull out at just the right moment, they could have a run that's going to push them up to the podium. But right now, they're making very slow going of it. As you said, once this lead pack starts fighting, that gap is going to disappear.
They need some help to make a move at this point. I think Kevin Irwin might have fallen out of the main pack, as well as he's starting to fall back from the 2 cars in front of him. So I think that'll leave it to 8 cars in the main pack that are going to be up here fighting for this win. We're on 6 laps to go now. It looks like Jake Ham and Roger Shank will be able to catch back up to the field. The question is, how fast can they do it? And who is going to be the first driver to pull out of line? It's been the Ashley Lyle show ever since the restart, and since then, nobody's really been able to challenge her.
I suspect with 4 to go or 3 to go, Roger Shank is going to have that gap closed, and if he times it, maybe even this lap with 5 to go, the gap is closing. He's going to be able to use that momentum. He may be able to wedge his way up there in alongside and open up a gap below him and try to slot in, pick up some more momentum, pop right back out. So he's in a good spot here. He can make up some positions pretty easily. We're going to watch this gap disappear over this lap, and as it comes to the dog leg, expect to see somebody jumping out. We see Adam Thompson kind of getting out of line, Tim Cox half following him, and that's going to really help Roger Shank keep that momentum going and get some spots on the inside. Jake Ham sticking to the outside, and now we have a second line for him, and there's lots of dancing around.
Looks like more and more cars defecting to this outside line. It's 4-on-4 at the moment, with Jimmy Howitt leading the force of the outside line. Adam Thompson thought about pulling back to the inside, didn't commit to it. And now Josh Clogg thought about pulling to the outside. No, 2 cars are around. One's going to pull back up onto the track. One spun to the inside wall. I think there might have to be a manual yellow for that one, unless they're not going to throw it. Both cars are pointed back in the right direction, so they might stay green here. That'll give us a 6-car battle for this lead. This is now 2 on 3. Ashley Lyle still leads the inside line. Josh Clogg, it looks like, still trying to get that outside line to work. He has help from Jimmy Howard, but it looks like they just aren't going anywhere right now. Is that energy, the inside line, still just keeping them in front?
Jake Ham licking his chops back there in P6. If he can close this gap up, he's going to have the momentum at just the right time. And more importantly, he can be reactive. He can watch what the drivers in front of him are doing and go for the holes that appear and get some spots. Right now, Ashley Lyle just needs to keep that car glued to the double yellow line. Don't even give up an inch. Take the shortest way around, and she's in a good position to win this race.
Yeah, the only thing is Bobby Ross is clear top if he wants it. It looks like he won't. No, really, Bobby Ross is clear top if he wants to join that outside line and try and make a move for the lead. He could be waiting till maybe 2 laps to go, or even the final lap to make that move. The only thing is, Josh Clogg could say to hell with pushing you to the win. I want to win it for myself and take him 3 wide. So, I mean, it's a massive chess game going on right now in the final 3 laps of this race. We have maybe 2.5 minutes left in this entire race now, and everybody's trying to scramble for as many spots as they can. Now the top has picked up some momentum. Is Josh Clogg getting to the side drive point on Bobby Ross's Radical? It looks like Adam Thompson going to fight him right back there on the inside. Oh, they make contact. Adam's around. He'll slam the inside wall and spin back up. I don't think a yellow. Yeah, no, there's no yellow for that. They're going to keep racing. It's 2 on 2 right now as Jake Ham has fallen out of this pack. It's a 4-car race for the win.
You see that outside line is able to make some gains on the straightaway, but the second that they get to the corner, that longer distance that they have to travel, they quickly lose it. So Ashley Lyle, again, just hug that yellow line, and you can race your way to victory. You'll win it in turns 3 and 4, and even a little bit in the dog leg. Right now, don't look now. Josh Clogg has a nose, but as they get to the corner, he goes way wide, and they're going to absolutely lose that momentum and have to fall back in line. And right now, it's Ashley Lyle's race to lose.
This is going to give Bobby Ross the perfect opportunity unless Jimmy Howard can give himself and Clogg one more run. But through the trial, these 4 cars will pick up the white flag at Daytona. The final lap in the first race of Season 5 of the XSLR Championship is underway. Bobby Ross still hanging out in line. I'm probably going to try and make that move on the backstretch, but can Jimmy Howard beat him to the punch?
Jimmy Howard in a good position to gain some momentum here going down the straightaway. Right now, it's a race to get in front just at all, even an inch. In case a yellow does come out, then you have the position for the restart. I do not know if they're doing any green-white checkers. That might even win the race. So we should see him pop out any moment now. Right now, seems to be waiting, and there he goes, finally, in turn 3, pops out, and it's going to be a drag race to the line. Can he get up there at all?
Bobby Ross still maintaining single file. Now he goes for it out of 4. Ashley's going to try and block. Hard into the outside wall goes Bobby Ross and Jimmy Howard. Ashley Lyle clean and green to the line. Faint move from Josh Clogg, but it's Ashley Lyle at the start-finish line by half a car length over Josh Clogg. Jake Ham is going to log 3rd. And what a finish to this race. Bobby Ross had the move locked up, got turned by Jimmy Howard. Howard will finish 4th. Ross will still get a top 5 there in 5th. Kevin Irwin is in 6th. Adam Thompson and Chet Duranic when photo finish across the line to finish 7th and 8th. Roger Shank in 9th. Jeremy Barber in 10th. And Boschel looks like going to finish 11th there, very far behind, and Tim Cox even further behind is going to end up 12th. What a finish as Ashley Lyle by a nose over Josh Clogg.
We were really fortunate or unfortunate. It's kind of hard to tell about not getting a yellow there at the end of the bunch to field back up, but it did just slowly pare down that lead pack. Ashley Lyle with that early pit stop was able to parlay that into a shorter pit stop at the midway point of this race and is able to bring home the trophy for tonight's race.
Yeah, and looks like Ashley Lyle with the win, just barely over Josh Clogg. who finishes second. Jake Ham is there in third. Jimmy Howard in fourth. Bobby Ross in fifth. Kevin Irwin in sixth. And might I say, Kevin Irwin and Adam Thompson had the closest finish of the night there, with Adam finishing 15 seconds and 15.325 seconds behind the leader, and Chet Duranek finishing 15.332 behind the leader. So that is 7 thousandths of a second between those two cars at the line. Adam Thompson got that there in 7th, and Chet Duranek finished 8th. Roger Shank in 9th. Jeremy Barber in 10th. Charles Boschel, in 11th, and Tim Cox finishes in 12th. The only Brit in the field finishes dead last, outfitting. But what do you say? We get some interviews before Tim Cox tries to kill me. And Randall, I believe you're on standby with our race winner.
Ashley Lyle, what a race. So you took that pit stop very early after that initial yellow. Were you thinking that you would be able to take that shorter pit stop and jump all the way to the front?
I wasn't planning on the shorter pit stop. I was honestly just trying to make sure I was covered for fuel so I could go an extra lap if needed, to be honest with you. The fact that it ended up kind of shortcutting people lap-wise on the next pit stop was kind of just a lucky little side effect of that.
As Bob Ross liked to call him, a happy little accident. Found yourself at the front. How nervous were you watching those cars joust behind you and watching that outside line try to develop?
Not really. Like, kind of the unfortunate part of the necessity of having to run these cars without damage is if you have a good pusher behind you, as I did with Bobby, there's not really ever a reason for the car behind you to back off the gas, because without there being damage, you're not going to run the risk of overheating. So in theory, you can kind of just keep like a continuous run going, which does make the defense a little bit easier. I do need to apologize to Bobby though, because it does look like my I don't know. I kind of feel like I tail slapped him into the fence. I know that there was a couple other things going on there with him looking like he's getting pushed from behind, except he wasn't. Never mind. I feel like I just kind of tail slapped him into the fence for that, so I need to apologize to Bobby for that.
So it looked like these cars were pretty much locked in the position they were. Making moves was extremely hard. You pit very early and found yourself at the back. How worried were you about making your way back to the front?
I was incredibly worried depending on the pairings that were actually running like 1, 2, or 3 and 4, right? With however strong they are kind of determined how strong the line was, and I was already trying earlier in the race to get past Chet or push Chet past and then just keep taking that run. And I was I felt like if I didn't come out of the pits, and whoever came out of the pits in the lead was in the best chance to win the race of anybody.
Well, an excellent display of oval skill. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank after your victory?
Thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, because I'm definitely going to watch back through this, as I do love watching the broadcasts from this group. I want to apologize again to Bobby, because I do, again, feel like I kind of tail slapped him for it. Thanks, Adam, for putting on the league. Thanks to their dog, Lewis, him and Sarah's dog, Lewis, for being a little cutie pie, and I want to thank my mom, too.
All right. Well, congratulations again on your win. And that was your race winner, Ashley Lyle. And Alex, I think you've found our P3 finisher, Jake Ham.
Yes, I have. And Jake, it looked like you fell out of that pack after that secondary incident with Adam Thompson. And ever since then, you just hung on behind the leaders, and you ended up stealing a podium after Bobby Ross and I believe Jimmy Howard ended up wrecked out of turn 4, and you end up with the podium at the end of the day. How's it feel?
I hate to get a podium like that, but I will take it. I'll take it. It was some really good fun racing. It's a good look at to what the league's going to be like, in these radicals, and they're a lot of fun to drive. So can't wait for the start of the season. This is going to be great.
Yeah, and that entire race, everybody was just pretty much just maintaining single file there, just hanging out in the pack. How was that there? Did you ever think at one point that you maybe should have made a move at one point you didn't take advantage of it?
Definitely. My thought process was not being in the front from previous leagues and classes that I've ever been in. And after watching a little bit more of the race at the end from the back, it was really interesting to see that you can actually maintain that front position a little bit longer than what I thought you could. I thought you'd be able to get a lot, larger run on the outside, but I mean, even running out front, it's going to be really tough to get around, I think, on these super speedways. So we'll see what they're like, on the little bit smaller roads, though.
All right, well, next week we head to this same track, but at the road course this time. How do you feel you're going to do there? Same cars, but completely different style of racing.
Gonna take the win. Gonna take the win.
All right, you know what? I believe you on that one. I'm going to root this week up from the commentary booth, Jake.
Thank you.
All right, and before I let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, obviously Superman, he leaps tall bounds in a
Absolutely.
single bounce, so that's my sponsor for tonight. Slow Motion Broadcasting, XLR, for the league. Appreciate it. Always good company.
All right, well, looks like that is all I have for you tonight. So congrats on the podium, and hopefully we'll see you back next week at the Daytona Road Course.
Thank you, sir.
And that was Jake Ham, your third place finisher for tonight. And Ashley, I believe you are on, wow. I think I called you by the complete wrong name there, Randall. And if I did, I apologize, but I believe you are on standby with Bobby Ross.
Bobby Ross, you were pushing the leader there for the second half of the race, and then right there at the end, tried to jump out, and things developed a little quickly. Found yourself getting slapped around a little bit. Tell us about your race.
It was pretty quiet up until the very last lap. Not even the last lap, the last turn, coming out of the last turn. And I was just trying to, save fuel, keep pushing, don't worry about being up front, because that makes you a sitting dog. And good job for Ashley for racing. And I saw the interview with her apologizing, and apology accepted. And but it was just hard fought racing on a super speedway. It's all good, no worries.
So how hard did you find it to make a move out there? You seemed pretty content to stay in line. Were you a little nervous about trying to pop out?
Not at least popping up too early. That was my fear. It was if I tried doing it on the last lap with 1 lap to go, like as soon as we cross the start finish line, then I'm going to be a sitting duck between Josh Clogg and Jimmy Howitt. And so I wanted, if I was going to make that move, it had to be at the exact right moment, at the very last moment. And I thought coming out of turn 4, that would have been the right moment to go. I'm sorry.
Well, it looked like you timed it pretty well. I think you would have had a pretty good run there. Ashley kind of came up and blocked a little bit. You had a little bit of action in your mirrors from Jimmy Howitt as well. Before we let you go, though, is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank for your race?
Well, yes. First, I would like to thank everyone from my karting team that I do IRL, Risa Racing. I unfortunately wasn't able to come down to race with them this weekend because for the past week I've been fighting with I forgot what it's called, but it's a congestion. It's an infection in the sinus area, and so yeah, I have unfortunately wasn't able to race, and hopefully everyone did good down in Homestead. So yeah, Jerry, Rudy, Rohan, thank you all for an amazing season and letting me represent you guys here in iRacing.
Right. Well, hopefully next week we get to talk to you again in a little bit better circumstances on the podium itself and not knocked off at just the last moment. That was your P5 finisher, Bobby Ross. And Alex, what a race.
It was a very exciting race from Daytona. I honestly, I gotta say, I wasn't really expecting the single file racing. I thought everybody was going to be on top of each other every single lap, just trying to make any move they could for the lead like they were at Talladega last season. But very impressive display of driving from the entire field, and overall a very entertaining race.
I think it's just a little unfortunate. The nature of this car doesn't really make for the best racing on a track like this, but they made the best of the situation, and we still got plenty of excitement. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week on the road course.
Most certainly. Well, looks like that is all that we have for you tonight. Before we round off the stream, we got upcoming broadcasts. We only have 2 tonight. This Thursday, December 15th, the Mazda MX-5s of the Spec 5 World Tour return for their final race of their season at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. That'll take place at 9:15 p.m. EST. You're not going to want to miss that. Going to be a very entertaining show. And then for for race 2 of 16 in the XSLR Championship from Sunday, December 18th, that'll be at 8:10 p.m. EST. where we return once again with the Radical SR8s at the Daytona Road Course. But that is going to do it for us. My name is Alex Andersen. I've been joined in the commentary booth by Randall McGrew with Jonathan Grabowski in our virtual production truck, and from Daytona International Speedway for Slow Motion Broadcasting's coverage of Race 1 of Season 5 of the Cross Series League Racing Championship. Have a good night.